I really do. I hope you are. There's so much going on right now that it's nerve-wracking for everybody, and I know there's so many changes in the world and in our nation and even my state, the state. I am, you know, it's difficult when you come on and you don't want to step on toes or have somebody come back and say, oh, you should have said this or you shouldn't have said that, or just let it go or just grow up or just pull yourself in like in a million different directions, right? To not even know what to say because the circumstances are so dumbfounding that the words just don't want to spill out all the time and in every way because you want to be out there and giving positive information and trying to lift everybody up, which I do. I've never not been about wanting to be uplifting and to offer some wisdom, some peace, harmony, but I feel like I have so much to say that in so many different facets and categories. And I write them down, and yet when I come on here, especially when I come on live, it's almost like I want the spirit and inspiration to just pick me up and take me with it and just to give you my inspired words. Now, for some of you, the situation that I'm dealing with has been, well, some of it already happened a long time ago. But for me, weeding through all of the menagerie and the secrets and trying to, can't see the trees for the forest, some of these things that I speak about might have already passed for you, but for me, it's still very much unsettled. And so when you ask me to just, skip ahead and let's all be nice now and forget that it ever happened, I feel like that's even further degrading me as a person because if it's not acknowledged, the pain and suffering that I've endured at the hands of these gang stalkers and church stalkers and several different industry stalkers, that I feel like, you want to hear what I have to say. You might not like it, but I know you want to hear it. Because no matter what it is that I'm compelled to tell you, it is from my heart. And it is with the ultimate desire to use whatever I've learned. And we're all kind of going through this right now. So, and maybe, if maybe you're speaking out for yourselves what you've gone through. Now, I'm not a tarot reader. I don't really know how to do it. I mean, I'm sure I could figure it out. But that was never what it was about for me. It was an accident that I even heard my first tarot reader. And what she said was so compelling that I had to stop and listen to her. And I've told you this before. I was scrolling by. I knew I was under attack in the condo in Saratoga Springs. I already knew that. And I've given you guys a lot of evidence about that. And so when I was scrolling by and she said, your grandmother Marcella wants to talk to you, I stopped because, having that connection or the energetic connection with the spirit world is not foreign to me. Even before I was sick, it wasn't foreign to me. When she died, she came energetically to me in Oregon when I was living there. And, it can happen, it can happen to anyone if you want it to. That's all I'm going to say about that, okay? Because that's really not the point. The point is that we are all spiritual beings. And, there's some things that I believe that the Christians maybe they want to shun that, I don't know. But there's some certain things that I've learned along the way. And it hasn't changed the love that I feel from the Savior towards me or me toward the Savior. I feel like there's so many people that are so rigid, and I mean, I'm not saying that rules shouldn't be taken very seriously. They should be. But at the same time, I think that it's just been so, if you could take the left and the right Like, let's say the left is bad, and not that they're bad, just saying the left is right and the right is good. Negative energy, positive energy, and if we could just hone it and bring it right into the middle somewhere, we might just about be right. We might be just right, just finesse that center, that balance in that center. By saying that if you don't live a certain way, that God doesn't love you, and He does. He doesn't, and I've said this before, you don't have to jump through all of these hoops for God to love you. He just does. He made you. You're His creation. He wants you to make good choices in your life so that you don't get hurt or harmed, and but it's not supposed to be so hard, to where it's really difficult for some people to actually walk in faith because they feel like they're being judged, constantly judged. And and the church has done that so much, and I know that Jesus didn't mean for it to be that way. And if there's one thing that I have finally allowed myself to accept, because believe me, I have tried to be on this path before, and somebody religious tried to yank me back, and or to guilt me and make me feel like, well, if you're not living a certain way, then you're going to go to hell, or you're in trouble somehow. And this, I don't believe it. I don't. I know He loves us. I know He knows that we're going to make mistakes. But let's consider for a moment that mistakes might be ingrained, that somebody else still feels like certain things are sin or mistakes, when other people might not, and yes, there's some things I want to discuss on that, because again, we want to make prudent, safe choices for ourselves so that we are in, we're not in harm's way. We're not putting ourselves in harm's way. Okay. I'm going to come back to some topics that I missed. There's something important that I have been asking for answers. When my kids were little, when Cameron and Hayden were little, I had just met Kent. I hadn't known him for that long. I met him at, it was in, I don't know, maybe it was West Valley, or so. It was a dance. It was a church dance, right? And and when it was, we got along immediately right from the start. We liked each other right from the start. That wasn't the issue, as far as I was concerned. But someone told me that they sent him specifically toward me. And I don't think that is necessarily true, because it seemed pretty organic the way I met him. But someone told me that he was put in my life specifically to mess me up. Well, if you look back, if you look at what has happened, I would almost have to agree with that. That it wasn't a real thing. It was a planned, meetup, I guess. Who knows? But after a few months, of dating, well, it was maybe a month, my parents, George and Myrna, the parents that raised me, wanted me to go to North Carolina, to Asheville, and help JD. JD had lost his wife and a few years before, and he was not doing well. He was really upset, He did have a very severe drinking problem, but his life was just miserable. He was very, very sick. And so when they asked me to do that and told me that JD would send me the money to go down there, well, I put some things in storage, and I, rented a U-Haul, I guess, and took some things with me, and took my little boys, they were like, 3 and 5. So yeah, they were very young. And I took them on this really neat road trip. When I was little, George and Myrna had taken us to Kansas, and we went to this Western shootout place called Boot Hill, Dodge City, Kansas. I don't know if it still runs the way that it used to, but when we were kids, we'd go there, and it was actually actors in a saloon, and it was a Western town, and there would be gunfights and a bunch of cool things going on inside this saloon, this Dodge City, Kansas place. It was really fun. And when you're a kid, it's like, ooh, it's bigger than life. And I remember I got this blow up skunk, and you had to blow it up. And he was a little skunk, like Pepe Le Pew. And on the side of it said, I'm a little stinker from Boot Hill, Dodge City, Kansas. And so, and it was really cute. I wanted to have my kids see it, but unfortunately, even though they were still running, I don't know, they were closed for whatever reason, but I also had taken them, to Silverton and Ouray, because I wanted to see the beautiful mountains. And it's funny, it was really probably for me, because they don't even remember it. They don't remember the trip. But it was really something. And then finally, when I do get to Asheville, I'm getting out with my kids. I go to the front door of this house, and JD opens the door completely naked. He's as old, he's maybe 8 to 10 years younger than my dad, but they were cousins, right? Because his mom, Aunt Verda, was the oldest and my dad was the youngest. And so he seemed like he might be like an uncle, but he's not an uncle, he was a cousin. That's how that worked. And so, but it was really, it was, and I'm just like, JD, I've got my little kids here, go get some clothes on, only to find out from some friends that later on, when his friends, came over to meet me and told me that he thought in his mind that I was going to come there and marry him. And he knew I was his cousin, so I don't know what he was thinking. It's like, no, that's not why I'm here. I don't, so, but anyway, he's very sick, like I say. And then, once I get there, I need to get my kids in kindergarten and school, and so, but it's really hard because the house needs so much work. It's like disgusting. And he's been really sick, been sick on the carpet, been sick, The dishwasher doesn't work. There's roaches everywhere. There's mice everywhere. It was really, it really, he couldn't do it. He wasn't well enough to do anything, right? And so one of the first things I did was ripping up carpet and taking the nails out of the floor, because they had real hardwood floors. And so I was really, and then I wanted to roll it up because there was no saving the carpet. Oh, I went and got this paint. I had to paint it like 3 times before I could even put the actual color on, because the resin from smoking was just so heavy. But this was so not the environment for my children. I don't know why I was led into that hornet's nest in the first place, honestly. But it was still a wonderful experience to be in Asheville and to go to North Carolina and to drive through the Smoky Mountains. It was an adventure. And so in a way, I'm glad to have that experience. But when it got to, I had been communicating by phone with Kent, and he decided that he was going to come and help me get, the dishwasher out, put a new dishwasher in, and help me with some repairs on the house, because it was just a huge undertaking. And I did what I could, but JD, he would cry all the time. It was really sad, and I did everything I could. He would just cry and cry. And when Kent finally got there and everything, of course, I thought I was in love, and and I just thought he would be a great example, because he's an attorney. He'd be a good example for my kids. And I had all this, I was thinking it through. I'm thinking this would be the best, maybe this would be a good thing, right? But things kind of got strange, pretty quickly in. But by the time he got there and we finished up the repairs, and my kids had been going to school, and they were, and I was working so hard in the house, the teachers would call up and say, your son is making the teachers do all of his homework for him, or you're not making your kids do their homework. And, they're really strict, in the South about, school. They don't mess around with that, And it was just, I was doing all I could, because, trying to take care of this man, because he was sick and he needed me there. And so finally, when Kent got there, JD had given me about $3,000 to go start my life back in Utah. I had to go back to Utah because I had things in storage. So I really had no choice. And then, and we went to New Orleans, and, on the way through, and he wasn't even remotely religious, really, at all. Not at all. And for me, I was like, I was really in complete adoration and admiration, you know what I mean? And so he was not, who you would expect should be a good LDS guy to be like, It was, and there were feelings there too, so I will spare you that. But anyway, once we got back to Utah, he took my $3,000, and then he went and he says, "Oh, I got to have it because I want to rent this house." So we got this great big beautiful house in Linden. Well, now I really can't use the money to go on my own. I have to live with him. There was no choice. He took over my life, right? And finally, I had to wanted to get my stuff out of storage, It was just because my storage was blended with his storage, which I think was also a plot, because, I had to really fight to just get my stuff back. I remember there was this one time he had work in Salt Lake, and I was home, while the kids were gone. And I noticed that in his office there were thousands of dollars, and I wanted to take my money back and go because, things were getting a little bit forceful. When it came to sexual things, he was very much expecting something from me. And so I can remember going up in that closet, knowing that I didn't like the way he was treating my children. I mean, the way he was treating my children was terrible. But and then every time I would try to go, "Oh, I'll do better," and he would get better for a while. But see, this was the whole pattern of the whole relationship, right? And then plus, me having the guilt of having to be with this man and thinking, "Oh, the church is never going to go along with this," And it was just, there's so much to say about what happened in that relationship. But I never had the choice or even my own money to be able to go out and even get a place. And I did not plan on living with him when I got back to Utah. And I thought it was important that people knew that I was trapped in a situation. Sure, over time, I kind of got used to having semi-security, but that's not even true. Because then when we did leave that house and go to an apartment, he was going off to Salt Lake and spending the night. And, I caught the recorder under my pillow, and in his little kinky little things, and saving all those tapes. Then I called the police, and there's a complete file with Vicky from the police station. When he locked me in he wouldn't let me get out of the house, and that was when we were in the house by the river, and took the phone off the wall so I couldn't call anybody because I'd found this suitcase full of these tapes, right? And so it put me in great harm's way. And his mother, Betty, said, "You better be careful, he has a gun, So, she did say that. That's what his mother said to me. And, and I remember him taking off with the silver briefcase, hiking it down the street. And he took my car and sold it. We had to sell it. And then he bought a washer and dryer. So then I had to ride my bike. He drove the Porsche in a really nice pickup truck, but I had to ride a bike to work. I didn't have a vehicle after that until he got one from his brother Jason. And that one, was completely, the body wasn't even welded correctly to the frame. It already had been totaled. So the whole time I was with Kent, he was driving fancy cars. I was like, So, but it was really a terrible situation. And so I remember, but when we were living, and maybe this will kind of help somebody understand, if he was willing to do audio tapes, maybe he likely did videotape, and I never knew. So let's go to the house that was in Linden. He took me to Barnes and Noble, and he bought this book to show you different positions or how to excite your man in different positions that, he wanted to try. And, and you have to understand this man. If you don't give him what he wants, he rants and gets really upset, and this continued, he would get better and then he wouldn't get, and then it would get worse. But there, I had already been through so much. You have no idea what he put me through. You really don't get it, you know? And and when he was in the hospital with a brain tumor, he had, a girlfriend, come over. They actually came to see him. There were reasons why I left, and he was belligerent and cruel. And I feel like, they're hiding what I'm saying. They're hiding my video. They don't want you to know what I really went through, and that I really was trapped in that situation. And then when you finally have some sort of, semblance of a foundation, even with the little boys, I wanted to, I wanted them to have a good home. However, we rented property until we built the townhomes in Springville that were expensive enough that I had, my income was used primarily first, and then his maybe, but no, he really hijacked my life. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When I left Kent, I did have the help of the nurses to go because he was threatening my life. He was threatening my life. He was, in his speech was, and okay, let's say for instance, maybe he didn't know what he was talking about. It doesn't matter if you're in danger. Whether he knew, whether he didn't know. And I asked Eileen Booth and Tony to do a complete psych evaluation and to be sure that he knew what he was talking about. And they told me that it would be best for me and my children to go, and so we did. And if I had not gone the way that I went, Kent's brother, Brent, and Laurie, and Jason, and Teresa, and all of them, they would have tried to stop me. There would have been no way. Right? And it would be no different. They would still try to rip everything out from under me and make my life a living hell. When I left the townhome in Springville, I stayed in the Relief Society president's basement in Springville. The Bishop Prowl, he knew I was there. He knew what I was going through, and he knew also what Kent was like. And none of the people in the ward would even let their kids come over because they didn't like Kent. And Kent would put, had some sort of threatening messages out there for the home teachers, that he didn't like them coming over. He didn't want me talking to them. I got in trouble if I would go and talk to a bishop. And that's a fact. And he called Bishop Rawl. I finally had to sneak off work early to go to talk to Bishop Rawl and tell him what was happening in my life. That I was threatened, that I couldn't go a single night, go to sleep without having to perform for Kent sexually in some way. And if I didn't go along with it, he would either drag me up the stairs or he would lock me out of the house so I couldn't come in. Took away the vehicle. I drove to talk to the bishop after work. He came over there and towed the vehicle away while I was in the church building talking to the bishop. And we saw him do it. And the bishop called Kent, "What are you doing?" "Oh, well, I don't think she has insurance on her vehicle, so I'm just going to take that away." It was so stupid. It was just so obvious, okay? I was a prisoner to this guy, all right? And so when I left, it was the best thing I could do. I felt bad for him because of the timing, but back then I was still, kind of compassionate, and I felt very sorry for him, what he went through with his brain tumor. But I have these minor children that are my responsibility. And I am not going to risk the mere chance or possibility that man could do another single damn thing to them. He had already caused so much hurt and harm emotionally for my children. It didn't take 2 seconds. They say, "You go," I left. That's what I did. And it was the best thing I could have done for myself. And I have spent, how many years now? Almost 2 years now, talking to you people and giving you the same evidence over and over and freaking over again. And I've had enough. He had took the equity out of the Springville house. He found out about inheritance money. He took that too. Okay? My siblings hired him to completely demolish my life. We know that's true. I'm sorry. Good luck. You can repent, but don't bother me again. That's never going to change, okay? You deliberately did what you did. I'm not going to help you. I don't care, okay? I have a right to my safety and well-being. I do. And I don't have, I hate, sometimes I wish I should just stick to reading what I'm reading. Okay, but since I wrote it down, I'm just gonna ad lib here. I'm just gonna go direct from the heart. I want to know if Kent's family or somebody paid Dr. J. Cordell Bott to say that I had the cancer come back, because he did prescribe me the medicine, and he did tell me we need to handle this disease. Eventually, I did go up to Huntsman to get second opinion. I had to do an appeal with IHC to be able to go back up there and he agreed with me. Until it's aggressively growing, you don't need to take the drugs, because I couldn't even put the Verzenio in my mouth. And they know I was trying to raise money to go to Mexico because I wanted to do a different cancer treatment, because I never wanted to do chemotherapy again. But because I'd outlived my diagnosis, now they've had to switch it up. So now if something happens to me, they could just say it was natural causes, right? Because now I have a terminal disease, so it's convenient now that they couldn't, paint me as a liar, saying that, I lied about having cancer since I outlived my diagnosis. So now they can just say, well, if she dies, well, it'll be natural causes, right? You can cover up a murder if you want me, if I can even say that. But hey, at this point, I don't really care. I'm just going to tell you the truth. That's all I can do. I want to know if these son of a bitches got my kid's cat. I love that cat. They set me up to lose that truck, and they know they did it, and so does Judge Mickelson. They stole my mail, so I wouldn't even get any information from the DMV or from anybody that wanted to contact me, because the minute they found out something good was going to happen for me, they swooped in and made sure the mail went someplace else. And if you were somebody that ended up going along with them to help them harm me, and then you want to kind of roll back, that's going to be a bit of a problem, because even if you didn't know, and even if you were lied to, if you're the kind of person that rolls back in to just say, well, I didn't know you were this awesome person, Treva. I didn't know, I trusted, this fake family of yours that wants to slander you. If I can't do coward, I am not a coward, and I cannot be in a relationship with a coward. I can't. I just can't. There's something about chivalry and doing the right thing the first time around. Not going out of your way to fabricate evidence in a court of law, to videotape any kind of relations, and then to sell it to the higher, behind your back, you don't even know it's being done, and then to try to sell it to frame you with something. Clearly, he must have had a plot and a plan if, he wanted to set up all these situations and, go buy this position it was different than the, what did they call it, Kama Sutra, whatever that was. It was different than that. But the thing is that now as I look back, maybe he was hired to come and mess up my life because he knew I had money coming to me in the first place. Maybe he knew something about me I never knew about myself. And he's trying to do everything in his power because he feels jilted because I left him. Thank God I did that. Thank you, God, for helping me leave this monster, because that's exactly what he is. Oh, don't let the tears fool you. Oh, no. I can't. Oh, there's just so many things. And his family is just as messed up. They're bullies. It's almost like a mafia family. And that's how I really feel. Because there's no way anybody talks with any kind of sense or, they see what's going on, but they just turn a blind eye and let it continue on. And we've had enough. I don't deserve that. I deserve better. There is a reason why I've chosen not to marry again. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of men thinking that they can push women around. And maybe it's me. Maybe I'm attracting the wrong people. Obviously I have. My whole entire life, George, he was a narcissist too. He was very talented, nice looking. The women liked him. He treated my mother, he cheated on my mom all of the time. But, and my mom loved him. She just kept staying and staying and staying and staying. And I know that he died in real regret for how he treated her. But that doesn't change what she went through. And it also set an example for me. Not only do I have a father that's behaving like this, I've got a mother that puts up with it. How many thousands times do I forgive before I finally get a freaking brain and leave? You know, I don't, people can talk about, staying in your marriages, but I'm telling you, if you're being abused, man or woman, your children are watching. And it is up to you to do the right thing by them. Not the guy, not the woman, the kids. Okay? Right. So I've been through a lot. And I know that there's people out there that might be trapped too. And you might want to find a way to get out. I wish I had listened to Vicky at the Provo police station right from the start. I wish I had never gone back. Because when I did go back, I eventually did marry him. You know why I married him? Because I didn't want to I didn't want to have the church look down on me or to have somebody judge me. That's how bad, the church, they don't even know what kind of impressions that they can have on you. You know what I'm saying? That you're less than, without even really knowing where you came from, what you're doing, and yet all you hear is that how you're being judged and that and you need to repent. For the first year, that's all I heard from you guys. You need to repent because you believed fabricated evidence about me, and I was ticked the whole time. That's why I told you off, because you have no right to come into my life uninvited, putting you in my feed and try to judge me. I know myself, better than you, and I have a relationship with God. I don't need anybody telling me anything about me. And I do have a conscience, a powerful one. But the difference between me and you is that I actually care about people. They don't have to be, Molly Mormons and walking a perfect path to be lovable and to be someone to be respected. They're a human being. And this is why I'm telling you and why I've been saying the church and state have no business together. They don't. Because it automatically sets up this bias. No matter where somebody is on their path, it's going to make a difference. And it's unfair. It's unfair dominion. Now, I do love God. I really do. It's not fake for me. Because of my prayerfulness and because of me needing him in my life, you walk and pray. Everything you do, you're praying. Go, dear God, dear God, dear God. He's in my mouth. He's in my heart. He's in my mind every single minute. Just to get from point A to point B my whole life, and now you guys have made it worse. Because you won't stop surveilling me. Everyone deserves their privacy. Everyone. What you have invaded my privacy. You did this and you knew I didn't even have any kind of criminal record at all. And you just think it's okay just to set up cameras and surveil somebody? Oh. You don't want to go along with that. You really don't. And when I talked about, them taking away our rights, I was thinking about this. I was thinking hard about this. So I heard this guy today. We're all going to need to get new Social Security numbers because, Doge took our information, it leaked, and then they want to say just Doge did it. But, there was President Trump and there was, the Republicans. And what about all the judges that signed off on letting Doge come in and look at our information? Come on, okay? There were judges that are supposed to be, nonpartisan whatsoever. Made a decision to let Doge go in and to look at all of this stuff. And it was with the guise of, we don't want to be paying people who are fraudulently receiving Social Security benefits, on and on and on, because the country's having a deficit. Do you know who was stealing getting Social Security death benefits? Kent. Because they faked my death, right? I left him. And so what did they use? Chris Jansen, they used a different name. They staged my death and put in a claim that I had died so they could collect life insurance. And you're sitting here and letting that guy walk around. What does that tell you about law enforcement right now? If they're just letting people walk around and they know damn well they faked my death, and they know damn well he committed Social Security fraud and life insurance fraud. I have been divorced since 2013. He got together with his first wife and has been parading around, acting like me. I think she's going by Heidi, I hear on YouTube. But she tells whatever I say, then she'll go in and say something similar. But mocking, mirroring my channel. Doreen, yeah? And so what I'm telling you is that this is serious business, okay? This is my life. You invaded my privacy. You had people bring in a camera. You knew I did not have any criminal background. What you did is wrong. It is not okay. Surveilling and you get your eyes off of me. Get me off of that CCTV. You have no right to watch anything I do at all. You can listen to me sing and you can listen to me talk, but you cannot come into my home, put cameras to wherever I'm living and watch me. You sickos. And that's it. They were watching me when I was going to the bathroom, when I was getting a shower, getting undressed. These people are sick. And I never signed a contract to be a part of Unstoppable. And yet I get pushed out of two places, right? And luckily I found another place. It's just ridiculous what these people did to me. And you know what? I can forgive. Certainly I can. But you still have to face the consequences for the actions that you took. And I don't care from the bottom of the heap to the very top in government. I called Utah State government. I did. I wrote them an email. These people are targeting me. And then I didn't even have a clue how many actually really were targeting me. So I just focused on, the people around me and family. This is my life. You have no business surveilling me any longer. Okay? You have stole from me my inheritance, my birthright, the truth. Oh, and let's talk about that. I've learned that I was a baby in the Allen House Hospital. It's what it used to be called, right? That I don't belong to my family. I'm not their kid. I didn't know. They never told me. But they knew where I came from, because why are they able to steal my inheritance, waiting for my inheritance, plus George's inheritance too? These are thieves. I've been put within a nest of thieves. And I know the church very well knows my circumstances. And I've been waiting for answers. I want the answers. I deserve them. But see, having to give me the answers makes them look guilty because they're involved. I don't care, because you have to do the right thing in this matter. You cannot take what belongs to me. You cannot. Not my work, not my money, not my property, nothing. And I deserve these truths. Do you know why I came to YouTube to get my questions answered, to ask you guys to help me find out who my real parents were? Because when I called the police and I told them that they're stealing inheritance from me, they want to say, well, how much is it? What's it for? I mean, they were like, saying, look, I've been diagnosed with a terminal illness and I know my family's stealing inheritance from me. Help me. And they blew me off. I called the feds, the same thing. Of course I didn't really spend much time with them. Because I was just talking that I knew they were doing I'm not the one that was doing any witchcraft, by the way. Members of the church were, but not me. I wasn't. I don't even know how. So, anyway, I just want you to know that I have been through hell and back because of these freaks and liars that help them. And I'm not going to fake it or pretend or play nice just to make everybody else feel better. No, I want it to be a better world. I do. But you don't have the right to destroy someone's life for any reason. That is not harmed you. And if I have been doing anything to any of you, you could have called the police. And that's another thing. If I had done anything wrong, why did the police not come over and question me? Why didn't they haul me away? Because they know I'm innocent. They knew there was never a reason. This was a premeditated plot to steal. I know it, you know it, and to cover up where I came from. Why? And for who? This is my life. Mine. Not yours. Back off. Either you are a friend, but if you've done any of this stuff to me, you can't come back. Okay? You can't. If you've betrayed me that deeply to go along with this ridiculous, cruel plot, you can't come back. I deserve better. I really do. This was sickening. Sickening. You need to leave me alone and stop the surveillance immediately. Okay? Stop. I'm not kidding. I still have my right to privacy. You know, I still have a right to due process in a court of law in front of a fair and honest judge with integrity, not one that goes along with the program. Not the one that accepts what they know is fake. One that, you know, doesn't insist that the person not come in to the courtroom and hear her side of the story. This is what they've done behind my back. Gone to probate court and tried to keep me up. Oh, I'm crazy, I'm married. You know, and that's another thing too. There's some couples that are married in my name, right? Why did they do that? They did that to get a power of attorney over every single freaking thing I do, say, and have. That's why they did it. Because Ken is an attorney, and he set this up and married somebody in my name, Doreen, maybe, yeah, and then set up this fake power of attorney, just in case, right? I'm crazy, I'm sick, I'm gonna die, and he's taking care of me. I have not received one stinking dime of my own money. Not one penny of my own money. They're stealing every bit of it. And they don't, because I left him, he's all bent out of shape because his ego's shot. Oh my gosh, that was the best thing I ever did for myself. This is a monster, okay? He has abused his law degree over and over and over again. And he deserves to be disbarred. Ages ago. Back when he was doing the sex tapes, right? So this is it. The time is now. The police and the investigators, you have to do the due diligence. You have to do. You have to. There's no question. Right? Tax fraud. Oh, there's a plethora of other things I'll think of later on. I'll come back and tell you. But, you know, I've had enough, people. You know, this is not hilarious. You know, it might be hilarious for you, screwing up somebody's life. But now there's hell to pay. And you need to do your job. And do it the right way. Okay? Because if they get away with this, even for another second longer, they can come after you and screw up your life too. If they get away with me, they can get away with it with you. Don't you think they can't? And don't you think they haven't before? To fake my death, to get death benefits and life insurance. They belong in jail. I shouldn't even have to press charges. The state should have pressed charges already. Social Security should have pressed charges already. Good luck. You're going to really need it, you know? It has nothing to do with me. I want to be uplifting. But you know what? As long as this kind of crime can happen to me, it can happen to you. So whether you think it's positive or negative, you better take it as positive. Because this can't go on. No, people, you're going to have to do your jobs. No question about it. Yep. Have a wonderful evening. Hey, take care.